A special needs child died of hypothermia after being locked in the family garage on a 19-degree day in January 3 years ago.
I'm very upset, so, and obviously she's devastated. So.
With Thomas, doesn't bring him back, doesn't change anything, doesn't change all those other kids saw what he went through, and they're all going to need a lot of help.
This is 8-year-old Thomas Valva. Alongside his two brothers, Thomas was wrongfully removed from his mother's care sometime in 2017. The boys spent the next 3 years living with their father and his girlfriend. Unfortunately, they were subjected to maltreatment, starvation, and torture. Somewhere along the line, the family's unheated garage in the Long Island home was made into a makeshift sleeping space for Thomas and his older brother Anthony. The boys, who are both on the autism spectrum, endured challenging conditions in that garage for many nights until the 17th of January 2022, when Thomas tragically passed. In this updated video, we will talk about the trials of their father, Michael Valva, and his then fiancée, Angela Polina. Do take care, as we will also be revealing the enraging details as heard in the courtroom. Without further delay, let's get started. Thomas lived on Long Island with his father, Michael Valva, a transit officer for the New York Police Department. He also lived with his father's fiancée, Angela Polina. 6 children lived in that house. Michael's 3 boys and 3 other kids from Angela. Thomas tragically passed away on January 17, 2020, after Michael and Angela made him spend the night in the unheated garage on a night when temperatures plummeted well below freezing.
Hi, do you need the police?
I need ambulance immediately. My son's not breathing.
Okay, stay on the line. Your son, who's not breathing, how old is he? How old is he?
8.
8?
Yes. He fell down, he banged his head.
Okay.
He's okay.
Okay.
Took him, I gave him a shower to try and help him out a little bit. Stop breathing.
Okay.
CPR.
County Fire Rescue number 50, sir. What's your name?
My name is Michael. I'm a police officer with the city of New York. My son, I don't know if he's breathing or not. I don't know if his heart stopped. He fell down on his way to the bus. He banged his head pretty good. I brought him in, and I'm doing CPR right now.
All right. How old is he?
8 years old.
Okay. Do you need any instructions, sir?
I just need somebody to get here quick.
Listen, I already sent them, okay? Help is already on the way. Do you need any other kind of help?
Not at your time.
In response to that 911 call, the police showed up around 9:40 a.m. that morning. They came in to meet Michael performing CPR on an unresponsive Thomas. Michael's initial story was that Thomas fell in the driveway that morning as he was awaiting his school bus. Thomas was transported to Long Island Community Hospital and later declared dead. At that moment, his internal temperature was 17 degrees Fahrenheit. Investigators realized that Michael and Angela had made Thomas and Anthony spend the night in the unheated garage attached to the family home. At this point, Michael's story of a fall in the driveway quickly fell apart. The autopsy would later reveal that Thomas's death was a homicide, with hypothermia playing a significant role. Now, the temperature the night before was 19 degrees Fahrenheit. Imagine being forced to sleep on the cold, hard floor on a cold night like that. For context, this is what happens to the human body during hypothermia. There will be shivering, weakness, and confusion. The body will try to direct blood flow to the core, so the fingers, toes, nose, and ears will all lose their sense of feeling. The brain will also receive less blood, which is why confusion begins to occur. This will be followed by uncontrollable shivering and deteriorating motor skills. An extreme case of hypothermia will also impair heart function, and as the blood flow to other organs is reduced, multiple organ failure and death would follow. Imagine how miserable Anthony and Thomas must have felt spending the entire night locked inside the garage, while the outside temperature was only 19 degrees. Nobody, much less those helpless kids, deserved any of it. It hurts to imagine the suffering and fear Thomas experienced before the symptoms overwhelmed him. Everything that Michael and Angela did to these kids summed up one of the worst cases of child abuse we have ever seen. When an EMT arrived in response to their 911 call, they noticed that Thomas was cold to the touch. Michael and Angela then explained that the boy had hit his head on a door jamb. The EMT who responded to the scene wrote in a report to Suffolk County caseworkers that Thomas Valva had visible abrasions to his face that resembled road rash, the kind that could have possibly come about from being dragged across pavement. The EMT's report also noted that Thomas was ice cold and barely dressed. Thomas had his sweatpants pulled down to his knees and was dressed in only his sweatpants. He was not wearing underwear or a shirt. The EMT was informed by Michael that Thomas had hit his head on the door jamb before wetting his pants. He claimed that after giving Thomas a shower, he was then placed on the couch in the cellar. The EMT reportedly confronted Michael on the spot. Michael was informed that his account of what happened did not match the seriousness of Thomas's wounds. This was when Michael began to change his account of how things happened. He started claiming that Thomas had fallen to the ground face first as he was climbing the driveway to catch the school bus. You know when a story changes after the version of events is questioned? Yeah, classic signs of a lie being told. Apparently, the couple kept an eye on all 6 of their children using a sophisticated video and audio surveillance system. Angela had to share the footage with the detectives when she was questioned by them, but strangely, someone logged in, changed the password, and deleted some of the most insightful videos as the police started watching them. Police came to the conclusion that at least some of the children, especially Thomas and Anthony, were disciplined using some incredibly cruel and unusual forms of punishment. Michael and Angela were each charged with second-degree murder days later, on the 24th of January. They were also charged with 4 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. Timothy D. Sinney, who was the district attorney for Suffolk County at the time, referred to Thomas's death as one of the worst crimes of child abuse that he's ever witnessed. He expressed his shock at how sick the defendants were for watching the little boy die. Michael was immediately suspended without pay while the case was being investigated. Michael had worked for the New York Police Department for more than 15 years and was most recently assigned to the Transit Bureau prior to the crime. A few days later, on January 29, Michael and Angela were indicted. This left the boy's mother, Justina Zubko-Valva, in tears as the district attorney's officer described all of the abuse during the indictment hearing.
Degree murder, I don't understand that it is a second-degree murder. They kept telling me that that's the highest they can go. No, you can go higher. You have to set up the standards. That case like that, all the children out there who are in similar situation, who are similarly abused, are gonna know that crime like that is punishable to the highest extent of the law, not to the second extent of the law. Thomas deserves much more than that. The justice needs to be served where...
Prosecutors claimed that Michael and Angela physically and verbally abused Thomas and Anthony. They deprived the boys of food, blankets, pillows, and clean clothing. Both boys were said to occasionally arrive at school either covered in urine or in diapers. This was because the boys were not allowed to use the restroom. The prosecutor explained that while Thomas's icy cold dead body was still lying on the bathroom floor, Angela was standing close by doing her hair in the mirror. Imagine that. Not to mention the fact that Michael said, "I've been through more stressful things than this," when told of Thomas's death in the hospital. Absolutely horrifying. An audio recording that was captured on January 17 before the police arrived was played in court. This recording highlighted the fact that one of the other children had seen Thomas's condition that morning. The child had boldly asked why he could not walk upright and kept falling. Angela responded to the child, "Because he is hypothermic. When you're washed with cold water and it's freezing, you get hypothermia." Then Michael can be heard entering the room and saying he's cold, boo effing who. Angela eventually asks him, "What are you doing?" To which Michael replies, "I'm effing suffocating him. That's what I'm doing." In video footage that the police were able to recover, Thomas and his 10-year-old brother Anthony could be seen sleeping on the floor of their unheated garage for 2 nights prior to the 17th. The recordings, according to the prosecution, also showed that an unconscious Thomas was placed in a hot bath in an effort to raise his body temperature. Surely Michael should have known that it was a little too late for that. Was he possibly covering up his tracks? Those conversations proved that Michael and Angela knew he was hypothermic. They knew the boy was suffering but did nothing to assist him. This can never be considered an accident. It was murder. He passed away right in front of their eyes because they did nothing to assist him. They not only provided no real assistance at all, but they also lied to the police. They tried to mislead the EMTs. They thought they would just get away with it. The prosecution made reference to court documents that highlighted an incident that took place 2 years prior. The document from 2018 stated that on the 13th of January, Michael physically abused Thomas Valva in anger. He forced the then 6-year-old to lean over a table with his hands outstretched and then repeatedly struck Thomas on the buttocks. The child received numerous bruises and was in severe pain for at least 3 days. At the end of the day, Michael and Angela were both held without bail. Justina Zubko-Valva, Michael Valva's estranged wife and mother of the 3 boys, had been claiming that Michael was violent towards the boys for years. Justina described Michael as erratic and unable to control his anger. The two had gotten married in 2004 and eventually got divorced in 2015. Sadly, Justina was a Polish immigrant, unlike Michael, who was a cop and could afford legal representation. Michael seemed willing to do anything to harm Justina because he hated her more than he loved his children. The cards were stacked against Justina, especially after Michael made up allegations of child abuse against her during the contentious divorce proceedings. The boys she loved so much were taken from her custody sometime in 2017. Justina had not seen her kids in over 2 years before Thomas passed away, only to be called in to identify his body years later. Justina really did make every effort possible. You would find this tragic tale of a mother doing everything in her power to protect her children from the terrible man who helped her create them on her Twitter account, Stand Against Child Abuse. In 2018, she uploaded this video of Thomas. The child was detailing as best as he could how his father would punish him and his brothers by locking them in the garage.
Why? Why would he say that?
I'm gonna pick the orange one.
Guys.
Mommy, Daddy help me.
It's okay, you just want to play the ball.
Mommy.
Guys, you know that's not true, right? You always can hug mommy, kiss mommy, and tell mommy what? That you love mommy and miss mommy, right?
Right.
Yeah. What's gonna happen if you tell me that you love me and miss me and you give me a kiss and a hug? What's gonna happen?
I don't know what's gonna happen. Then Daddy's gonna put me outside.
Outside?
Yes.
Where?
In the backyard.
Where in the backyard?
Over there.
What's in the backyard?
Cars. And I can't wear cars if I'm on time out.
Oh my goodness, it's like jail.
I know it's like jail, but
Justina tried to report this abuse of her son to the FBI while also involving several judges, the police, and other agencies. She warned a judge that her kids would die if they stayed with their dad, but nobody listened. Justina also claimed she received hostile treatment from responding officers. She claimed that they yelled at her, made false claims in their reports, and also prevented her from filing her own written reports. She also alleges that she was ignored whenever she tried to file a formal complaint. Maybe because Michael was an NYPD officer, everyone assumed he could do no wrong. According to records between 2015 and 2019, police departments in both Suffolk and Nassau counties received an astonishing number of 33 911 calls. Each one requested that officers be sent to the home where Michael and Angela lived with their blended family of 6 children. These boys endured so much for so long. If Michael hated them or could not handle the fact that they needed extra care and attention, why then did he fight so hard to take them from their mother? It makes no sense. Michael even had the audacity to start a GoFundMe page before being arrested. Just when you think you couldn't be any more despicable, you will find out that he actually started a campaign with the words, "It is with great sadness that I must bury my 8-year-old son. He passed away recently due to a tragic accident. At this time, I'm not able to handle these unforeseen costs on my own, and if there's any help anyone can provide, we would greatly appreciate it. In lieu of floral arrangements, we ask that a donation be made instead. Thank you for your help and sympathy." Before Thomas's autopsy findings were made public, Michael collected over $10,000 from more than 200 donors. As you can imagine, things got really bad for him after that report was made public. After a significant social media backlash demanding its removal, GoFundMe took down the page on the 24th of January. According to a spokesperson, "We removed the campaign and all donors will be refunded in full." Additionally, the GoFundMe platform will no longer accept campaigns from Michael Valva. It's not like he would ever need to launch a GoFundMe campaign while incarcerated. On September 28, 2022, the Suffolk County Court in New York State heard the first opening statements in Michael's trial. In her opening remarks to the jury, prosecutor Laura Newcomb stated that Thomas's death was the result of years of psychological and physical abuse, all of which was aimed at Thomas and his older brother Anthony. She explained that the special needs children, Anthony, 10, and Thomas, 8, were allegedly beaten, starved, and made to sleep on puppy pads. The boys were hit, thrown downstairs, and slapped. The 2 boys had to sleep in the unheated garage without any bedding for months, which is what caused Thomas to die of hypothermia. She mentioned that on the morning of his passing, Michael hosed Thomas down with ice-cold water. She highlighted that school personnel usually found the boys rummaging through the trash for food as they arrived for class, wearing soiled clothes and sneakers soaked in urine.
Time today, we just saw inside of the Valva Polina household through the Nest surveillance system. And now this video was captured when Thomas was still alive. The judge warning people in the courtroom to not give a reaction to the video that they were about to see. And what we saw was inside of the boys' room. Now in the boys' room, there was a bunk bed with a trundle bed underneath. There were many times where we saw Anthony laying on the floor of the boys' room, and some of those times he was laying on pee-pee pads in the room. We also saw a video of him saying, "I have to go to the bathroom, I have to go badly." There was about a dozen videos also of Anthony in the garage. We also saw videos of a tent outside of the Valva Polina home with children's shoes outside of it and Michael Valva speaking into that tent. We then saw videos of both Thomas and Anthony in the garage, even staying there at times in the middle of the day. Now today we heard from Sergeant Norberto Flores again. He was the lead detective on this case. He said neighbors' Ring camera captured Thomas unclothed and falling several times in the backyard on the day that he died. Flores says after he watched those videos from inside home surveillance, he called CPS on a day that Thomas had died because he had a concern for the safety of the children in the household.
Anthony LaPinta, one of Michael's attorneys, blamed Angela for all of it. He described her as a wicked and cruel stepmother in his opening statement. Angela was blamed for all of the abuse, with claims that she badgered Michael about being too lenient with the special needs boys. The defense attorney referenced a text Michael had once received from her that said, "You are making it too comfortable for them. Let them be uncomfortable. That will teach them to control themselves." LaPinta pleaded with the jury to have compassion, explaining that Michael wasn't financially secure at the time and was only trying to reconcile his sons and fiancé. According to the defense, Michael provided the boys with mattresses, blankets, books, and a TV in the garage. But it was Angela who eventually took it all away after they had restroom mishaps. According to him, Michael was unaware that the circumstances he made his children live in could result in their death. LaPinta then asserted that no matter how troubling his words and actions towards the boys were, they didn't amount to murder, saying that this wasn't a deliberate evil act is a hard story to sell, if you ask us. At one point, Thomas's second-grade teacher, Michelle, also spoke out. She became so upset while giving her testimony that she had to take breaks. She informed the jury that she also reported certain incidents to CPS. She also explained that she kept a journal in which she noted times when Thomas asked for food or consumed the leftovers or crumbs of other children. According to Detective Gehrig, the majority of the crucial video was erased. However, the jury was able to hear one recording where Michael yelled, "What's wrong with you? Wake up. Are you alive? Are you alive? Are you alive?" Dr. Michael Kaplan, the chief medical examiner for Suffolk County, gave testimony during the trial as well and stated that he thought hypothermia was Thomas's cause of death. He discussed the recent injuries Thomas had to his face, head, elbow, knees, and torso, while describing the images that were shown to the jury. He claimed that Thomas could not have sustained all of the injuries in a single fall. This greatly dismisses Michael's initial testimony to the EMTs. Thomas's brain had undergone an examination, and according to him, there was no swelling, bleeding, or bruising. Finally, on December 8, 2022, Michael's sentencing hearing was attended by many jurors who wanted to see justice served for Thomas and Anthony. The judge admitted that there was no getting around the fact that Thomas and Anthony lived their young lives under constant duress in the place where they ought to have felt the safest, their own home. Michael did apologize for everything he did.
I'm truly sorry. I am regretful, ashamed, heartbroken, and grief-stricken.
However, it did not stop him from facing the wrath of the law. Michael Valva was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison.
I just want to say it was so extremely difficult to, sit in the courtroom, listen to obviously all the facts related to my son Thomas's death. I just kept thinking about how much abuse all my children encounter from the hands of those two abusers, Michael and Angela, for years, day after day, day after day. being deprived from food, shelter, the basics, what every child should be provided with. I kept thinking about all the institutions who failed to help him, who completely did absolutely nothing. Now everybody's trying to do the right thing, but where were you when I begged you for help? When you could have saved my child's life? I did file a complaint with Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. I did file a complaint with Nassau County District Attorney's Office, FBI, Suffolk County Police, Nassau County Police, Attorney General. Nobody helped my children.
By January 2023, Michael's legal representatives disclosed that they had submitted an appeal notice. In the meantime, Michael is currently incarcerated in Dannemora's Clinton Correctional Facility, serving his sentence. In Angela's case, jury selection started on February 22, 2023, and was completed 2 days later with the selection of 12 jurors and 6 alternates. On Monday, February 27th, the opening statements of the prosecution were made in front of Judge Timothy Mazzei. According to the prosecution, Thomas died as a result of years of abuse, maltreatment, and neglect, and both Angela and Michael were to blame. He described Angela as a strict disciplinarian. The jury also heard from Angela's defense attorney, Matthew Tuoy. He emphasized that the jury should not get distracted by the emotions that the case will provoke. He urged them to rather concentrate on what actually happened the day Thomas passed away. On March 7, 2023, Angela testified in her own defense. She cried frequently throughout her testimony. She acknowledged sending Thomas and Anthony to the garage during her turbulent relationship with Michael. According to her, "I exiled them. I didn't know what to do. It was evil and horrible." The night before Thomas passed away, Angela claimed she and Michael had agreed to force Thomas and Anthony to sleep in the garage. She claimed that in the morning Michael and her talked for a while about bills in the kitchen. Then, shortly after, she heard Michael yelling at Thomas from the basement before he joined her inside. When she asked why they couldn't send Thomas to school, Michael reported that he had fallen and hit his head on the concrete. Later, when she arrived at the garage, she found Thomas in a bad situation and feeling cold, but she felt he didn't seem to be in any immediate danger. Try as she might, it does not change the fact that she had a role to play in the unfortunate incident. Just like her ex-fiancé, Angela Polina was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison.
Please rise and face the jury. How do you find the defendant, Angela Polina, as to count 1, murder in the 2nd degree? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
How do you find the defendant, Angela Polina, as to count 2, endangering the welfare of a child? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
How do you find the defendant as to count 3, endangering the welfare of a child? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
How do you find the defendant as to count 4, endangering the welfare of a child? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
How do you find the defendant as to count 5, endangering the welfare of a child? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
It is truly a heartbreaking case, one that could have been easily prevented, but at least we can say that Thomas Valva got justice in the end.